Hello, everyone, and welcome to MeowMix, the Carolina Panthers podcast. My name is Steven.
My name is Jerry, I think. It's been
It's
so
been a
long, I
while.
forget.
It's been a while since we've done a pod. Actually, I think we've only done one maybe in the last 2, 3 months
Yeah, I mean, since the
since the
season,
season ended. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's good to be back. It hasn't been 3 months. It's been maybe 2 months, but we did do one, and now we're doing another.
hmm
So, and guess what? We'll do another one sometime in the future as well.
Yeah, we
So
already
that's
have the
gonna be,
plan of the title,
yeah,
so
we
it'll
already
probably
know
be
what it's
out in
gonna
a
be.
couple weeks.
Yep. Don't promise anything, Jerry. It'll, it'll
Yeah,
be
no
there when
kidding.
it
I
gets
mean,
there.
your computer died. I got deathly ill for a week. I mean,
It's been. I'm glad none of this happened like during the season because that just that'd have been rough. But yeah, it's not been the easiest time to just find time to get together as Jerry contracts COVID again. Uh, we're here to talk about a few things,
hmm
but the main topic today is going to be Brian Burns. He has been trending, I would say, especially in Panthers circles, but really even nationally. Some news came out that we'll talk about. But first, we want to start this out on a really positive note. We're a couple of weeks late on this as well, but a Panthers legend has been enshrined in the Hall of Fame.
and not only a Panthers legend, but a guy you think of whenever you say his name. You think him of a Carolina Panther. You think
Right.
of him in that jersey, that silver helmet,
Yep.
a Carolina Panther through and through. Well, not through and through because he did play other places, but you think of him
Yeah.
as a Panther. You don't say Julius Peppers, Chicago Bears, or Green Bay Packer. You say
No.
Julius Peppers, Carolina Panthers.
Yeah. And he thinks of himself that way as well.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean he
honestly.
retired here. He
Yeah,
he
he started his
boomeranged
career here.
around.
Yep. Boomerang right back. So congrats to Julius Peppers. I mean, he's like third all time, I think, in sacks, and
Yeah.
he's in the Ring of Honor, the Panthers Ring of Honor that lay dormant for so long. I think he was one of the inaugural members of the new, the most recent
And rightfully so. I mean,
iteration of this thing. Yeah, congrats to him. But yeah, that's awesome. I saw Charles Johnson was passing this question around on Twitter yesterday. If you had to come up with a Mount Rushmore of sports or athletes who played in Charlotte, played
mhm.
in, I should say played in the Carolinas, but we'll go played in Charlotte. I mean, Peppers has to be
Oh yeah.
probably number one, right? I mean,
I
he's the
mean,
only Hall of Famer really that I think we could call our own
well, I'm
in
gonna
terms of the
throw.
professional sports,
Oh,
right?
you got Alonzo Mourning and Larry Johnson. Um,
But
but
I don't think Larry Johnson's a Hall of Famer. But
and not
uh,
only that, I feel like they also left after their first contracts or maybe even their second.
yeah,
Meanwhile,
Alonzo,
Peppers
neither
kind
one
of
of them
came
like
back.
Charlotte.
Yeah, exactly.
Zoe thinks of
Peppers came
himself as a
back.
Heat for sure. Yeah, Peppers came back. So I think you have to go Peppers. I think you have to go Cam,
Cam, Steve
right?
Smith.
MVP. All right, but that's where I was going. Like, I mean, you could probably do. I mean, you could add Luke Kuechly, Greg
hmm
Olson. Like, you could go all four Panthers. I'm thinking of Hornets though. Like, would you do Muggsy? Is it Kemba?
I would say
I don't
right
think.
now Kimba's above Muggsy as much as I like Muggsy. As I was a little
Mhm.
kid, got pulled up on the old Charlotte Coliseum floor and did a little drill with him. By the
Yeah.
way, it was awesome.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. It was
And
like
that
one
you
of
were
those
you
like
were how old were you?
I was probably like 7.
So you were probably taller than him already.
I was not taller, but I was shockingly close. And this
Yeah,
coming from a very short person. I am 5'7"
yeah,
now, and my
yeah.
wife says, "You're not 5'7", you're 5'6", but whatever. I'm
Yeah.
5'7", barely in a
Five
centimeter.
seven.
I may hang
Uh,
upside down in the little upside down hanger that I have,
mhm.
but to get there, but
You
I
gotta
get there.
stretch it out. Gotta stretch it out. Yeah. I was thinking Dale Earnhardt.
Ooh, Dale
I
Earnhardt
mean,
definitely has to be on there if you're
yeah.
considering them an athlete.
I think you have to, honestly. I mean, but I don't. That's a tough question, honestly, because I wouldn't want to go all Panthers, even though I think you could.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe that's a topic for another podcast. But Julius Peppers, no question, is the number one guy I would think of if I'm doing a Charlotte Sports Hall of Fame, right? I mean, I don't think there's a question.
No, I think he's right up there. I think Cam may give you some questions, but overall production of whatever sport they were in, I think
Yeah,
if you're considering Dale Earnhardt, he's up there too. I think you could
sure.
actually say those two are pretty even. The rest
Yeah,
are
I mean,
a
yeah.
step below. I hate saying Cam below and Steve Smith below,
Well,
but
Cam
I
Cam
don't.
probably not going to be a Hall of Famer. Steve Smith is going to be real borderline, even though I think Steve Smith should be in.
Luke
That
Kuechly, I
lack
think,
of a
is a Hall of
championship.
Famer,
Luke
but
Kuechly, no doubt a Hall of Famer.
I think if he played 4 more years, I think he could bump Julius Peppers, but he didn't, and rightfully so. Good for Kuechly for retiring when he felt like he
Yeah.
he couldn't keep going.
So
But
would Kuechly be if let's say Kuechly makes the Hall of Fame? That probably puts him number two, right?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
100% in my eyes.
Yeah. Interesting. This is a good
I,
topic. We'll
I,
we'll have to think about this. Yeah, we'll have to think
sorry,
about
I
this.
didn't even know you were bringing this up, and now I'm all
I
into
know, I know, I know,
it.
I know. I thought about that too. I was like, Jerry's gonna be mad at me if I talk about this, but yeah. So, congrats to Julius Peppers. I mean, we wanted to make sure we gave him some kudos at the top of the podcast here, but really, this podcast is going to be talking about Brian Burns. Now, the
Mhm.
the news that came out, and I say news loosely because it was a report. I think David Newton might have been the first to actually report it.
I heard Joe Person, so I don't
Joe
want to.
Person has talked about it, but I think Newton was the one who reported it first. I may be wrong. One of the two. One of the two. Uh, the report was the Panthers offered Brian Burns a contract with an average annual value of $27 million a year. Brian Burns wanted 30. Apparently, they could not come to a compromise. Now, this obviously would have been during the Scott Fitterer administration, right?
Hmm.
So it really, there's been a lot of talk. There's been a lot of discourse. A lot of people saying, well, really, Brian Burns wouldn't take $27 million a year for a guy that had 9 sacks last year. Like, is he worth even that? That's the question that I've been seeing. I'm not personally asking that question. I have my own thoughts about it. We'll get to those in a minute. But excuse me, 8 sacks last year. Um, Brian Burns, what are you thinking when you hear that he turned down a $27 million? And again, annual average value, that does not mean, and 5 years, by the way, over 5 years, um, does not mean he would make all that money. We don't know what the guaranteed offer
I
was.
I think the guaranteed was low. Um, it just I think if he would have got offered 27 million or 25 million guaranteed, like a 5 year 27 million 100 guarantee, I think he takes it. I personally, I think this is the Panthers trying to save face, and they leaked this, and I think this is pure speculation and something I heard someone on WFNZ say. I know Brian Burns. It was kind of, but I can't guarantee. But I was already thinking this before
Mhm.
that it's a lot of guarantees built in to make it look 27, but it was actually like a 20, 22
Like
million.
incentives, you mean?
Yeah, incentives that you're not gonna get. You're not gonna get the NFL MVP for that $2 million bonus. You're not gonna, and a lot of teams do this, so the number looks really great on paper, but
Mhm.
it's not really that money. And I think last year I could see Fitterer doing that to him. And I get if you pull the trigger, this is going to really rely on Brant Tillis, who we probably paid a lot of money, who came in here from the Chiefs organization and who did Patrick Mahomes' contract
Mhm.
negotiation, to really figure out where he goes in that type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, and before we even get to that, Scott Fitterer, I mean, the Panthers organization screwed up so bad on this entire deal.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
First of all, once it became public knowledge that they turned down 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick from the Rams, it, regardless of whether they were going to be later first-round picks or not, once that became public knowledge, Brian Burns has all of the leverage.
All the
Because
leverage.
at that point, if you don't sign him, it's a catastrophe.
100%.
Right. And right now it appears to be heading that direction. It appears to be heading the catastrophic direction, right? They weren't able to get a deal done last year. Now we hear some of the specifics, not all, obviously. We don't know all the money numbers, the figures, but we hear the 27 million number. It sounds like a lot of money on paper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Burns wanted 30, which
Rumor.
would put him. Well, I think we kind of knew that, right? I think that was reported
That
last
was
year.
reported.
Yeah,
I
but
again, just like this 27 million, and you never know,
sure.
that could be a starting negotiation tactic. And
Well, in my
he is not
opinion,
worth the top tier money. I'll say that, but I'm just saying.
but that's what the Panthers valued him at when they turned down that bounty of
Mm-hmm.
picks, right? They valued him as one of the elite top end pass rushers because that's what those guys go for. When you trade those guys, that's what they go for. And the Panthers said, no, he's worth even more than that to us. We're not trading him. And in my mind, and I'm sure in Brian Burns' mind and his agent's mind, that's like, oh, well, you're going to pay for that. I mean, that's
And
this is
rightfully
what you're
so. That's
valuing us at. This is what you're going to pay us. And if you don't, then you're going to look like a fool.
I,
And that is currently where we are.
this is
in
the
the
worst
process.
case scenario for the Panthers, which
Yeah.
obviously the past 3-4 years since Tepper took over, worst case scenario is always the path the Panthers take. So, I
Been
mean,
5 years, I think.
yeah, 5 years,
Yeah.
whatever. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. We've been a laughing stock since then.
It
But
feels like 2 decades.
it really is worst case scenario. You don't take that money. You don't take that draft. Then you go ahead and you let him play on out here on the 5th-year option. He has a horrible season. Speculations are abundant. Then he comes out and says he didn't even that he was worried about getting injured after the
Yeah.
season, which
He said
damaged
that the
his.
contract negotiations affected him, he said, as
Yeah,
well.
I mean,
Yeah.
I do
And I
think.
wouldn't say he had a horrible season. He had the second least productive season of his career.
Mhm.
Uh, I think he was like top 10 in pass rush win rate,
Yeah, he was number
whatever that
6.
means. But
The I do have
he
a
didn't get
caveat.
there. That's always been one of his things is he doesn't get to the quarterback. He gets close, but he never gets there.
Yeah, but at the same time, we never led. When do teams
Right, right.
pass?
It was just a terrible season all the way around. But for him to come out and say that, he didn't want to get hurt. He
Oh,
didn't want to
that
cost himself. He did not want to cost himself the big contract.
all I gotta say is his agent probably popped a hemorrhoid whenever he heard him say that on air.
Yeah.
Like, he was just like, "Really? You
And
can't
again,
say that."
right, if that's what happened from a business perspective, I completely understand it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what I want to hear my, franchise player. Because at this point, you're paying him that kind of money. That's what you're saying he is. Even 27 million a year is a lot. I mean,
It's very.
yeah.
It's a lot.
That would have made him I think that would have tied him for the third highest edge rusher in the league with Joey Bosa. Would you value Brian Burns as the same as Joey Bosa?
No, and here's the thing:
Yeah.
is his agent's gonna argue that he's a top tier, and he's not that right now. He's
Yeah.
a ring 2 pass rusher. I love him. I think he's the best pass rusher we have on the team, which goes against the Panthers organization because they never really got another one except Hassan Reddick, and then let him walk.
Right. And that's the thing. I think that's kind of lost here is what is he in the NFL versus what does he mean to the Panthers?
Mm-hmm.
And to the Panthers, he means a whole hell of a lot, right? Because behind him is nothing in terms of pass rush, right? You've got YGM, who had a nice
Who's a
season,
free agent?
but right, and is not on the same, anywhere close to the same tier, a pass rusher as Brian Burns,
He's a bottom
right?
tier starting pass rusher.
Right. You've got Frankie Louvu, who is a good pass rusher, but again,
He's a
not
middle linebacker.
that's
He's not a
right.
pass rusher.
That's not the this position he plays. And then you're looking at Marquise Haynes, right? Or some of these guys that just are rarely out there and occasionally produce but are not consistent. And
Mm-hmm.
Brian Burns he's the only one that the Panthers have. They have not they hit on Hassan Reddick, but they let him go. And oh god, it's just I don't know what they do. Honestly, it's really depressing. Like it feels like we're losing again. Like we're not even playing and we're
What
losing again.
whatever choice the Panthers made is the wrong one. I mean, it's over and over and over again. I mean, I still think Luvu should have been the opposite to Brian Burns as a pass rusher. I think
Yeah.
he's a better pass rusher than he is a middle linebacker
Coverage
covering the
linebacker, yeah.
yeah. I think he should be there instead of middle, but I'm not
And I'll
the
be honest, I think he's fine at linebacker. I think he's very good. I think he's above average. But this team needed that other pass rusher, and Frankie
mm-hmm.
Louvu could have provided that.
And I would have put Chin in that middle linebacker spot. But
Yeah.
again, I'm not Evero, and the defense was good. It wasn't the problem
Right.
with last year.
Right.
So
The defense wasn't
I
bad.
could be talking out my behind if
Again, yeah, we're not professionals here. We're not coaches. We've never played in the NFL, but uh, some common sense.
I would have tried it. It
Yeah.
seems like he would have been
What could it
better.
have hurt? What could it have hurt?
Not like winning more games.
Right. Right. But yeah, Burns again, bad season last year for his and for his past, like what we expect from him definitely did not live up to expectations. But this is a guy who's played 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
He's
Two
made two
Pro
Pro
Bowls.
Bowls,
Mm-hmm.
no All Pros. Okay, you cannot put him in that upper tier in the tier one pass rusher range. He's just not there.
No.
He's just not there. He does not get enough sacks, and that is his job. Right? He's not a great run defender.
My question
So
is,
yeah,
he's a decent run defender now. He was
he's not.
bad.
He's not a great run defender. Is what I'm saying.
But
He's not a great run defender.
oh, I was about to say something now, then I lost it. I was gonna say, but at the same time, you have to pay him. I mean, at this point, you
Right.
can't. I
Like
mean,
I don't think he's worth that money, but they can't lose him for nothing. You can franchise tag him, and I assume they will.
you
Right?
have to. Yeah.
You could tag and trade him, but what's your return going to be? You're certainly not getting what the Rams offered. So you're already losing if you trade him. And then if you sign him for $29-30 million, I kind of feel like you're losing there too. But what are the alternatives?
Well, okay, so Spot Rack has him averaged their market value. I mean, this is
Mhm.
their 5 years, 108 million, $21 million average. What would you pay? Obviously, this is what they
Obviously,
think.
it's going to be more than that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I agree with that. What would you feel comfortable with going up to average per year? Obviously, with the incentives
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
I mean, I think I'd be fine with the 27. I think it's a little too high for him, but I think for what he means to this team and the fact that there is nobody else and that we've got a quarterback on a rookie contract, I don't mind giving him 27. I would like 24. I think 24 is more realistic for what he is. And I would hope he would outperform that and earn a second contract, that's even more than that. But if they did 27, 28, then I would like there to be incentives. I would like there to be some sort of out after 2, 3 years, right? What about you? What do you think?
That was exactly what I was going to say. 24, 25 with incentives up to 28 or so.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a 3 million incentive. That's not that's a normal type of incentive deal. And
sure.
like you said, it's a 3 year where you have kind of an out of 4 or 5 years. I mean,
Yeah,
restructure if he outplays it.
yeah,
Win-win for all involved. He's still 28 years old with 2 years left.
yeah.
Premier
I would say,
pass rusher. You could,
yeah.
as a Burns agent, you could be like, fork it over. But you never know.
And the question is, would he take that? Now, especially now that, and I wanted to get into this a bit as well. You mentioned it before. The prevailing thought is that the Panthers leaked this to
100%. I think that.
what, make themselves look better, I guess, or
I do.
paint Burns as kind of a greedy player, a bad guy, whatever you want to say. I don't 100% know that that's true.
Oh,
I
I don't
think that
either.
I think it could be leaked from some of the guys that got fired that were under Scott Fitterer. They would
Or
all
Scott
have knowledge of that,
Fitterer.
or Scott Fitterer himself. I mean, they would all have knowledge of that, right? Like, there's nothing to say that the Panthers leaked this themselves. It would be odd timing for them to leak this. I mean, again, what's the upside for the Panthers if they're trying to re-sign him? That being said, if it did come from the Panthers and the Dan Morgan regime, or even David Tepper himself, what a terrible look, man. Like, what a bad idea to do that. Because it just makes you look petty. Other Panthers players and players around the league will notice, right? They will know that, oh, well, you can't count on any sort of discretion with this franchise. If you ask for this, they're going to just out you, right? They're going to paint you look like, they're going to make you look like a fool. I mean, it would be so amateur to do that.
Well,
But I wouldn't put it past Tepper.
here's my thing: is on the flip side of that, the Panthers also make themselves look better. Of we tried to sign our premier pass rusher that we
I
thought
think that's what they hope you think, right?
100%. I mean, I
Yeah,
think you and I are also, and most of the people listening are also more in depth into NFL signings and
right.
Panthers and know what's going on more than you know the casual NFL fan sees 5 years, 27 million a year. Go, how dare this guy like reject
Yeah.
that? Meanwhile, me and you are
Panthers
thinking
Twitter. That's 90% of Panthers Twitter.
exactly.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, me and you are thinking, hey, there's probably incentives on that. I think there's probably it. And like the guy said on the radio, I think it was Kyle Bailey's show on WFNZ. A caller called in and said I had sources, but 20 million with
Sure.
astronomic, you know, incentives that will never get beat. But it looks good on paper to say
Yeah.
that.
Which is even so, like if maybe if the average was 25 before incentives, okay. I
Oh,
think that's fair,
oh,
right?
25 with incentives, I think is if it comes out that was it and he
Yeah.
thought that was wrong, then I think Burns is complete in the wrong. I think that's a
Yeah.
good number for him. I thought
But
that last
again,
offseason.
again, I wouldn't say he's in the wrong because of what the Panthers turned down. Because that's what his value is. And he knew it. And he had all of the leverage.
I'm gonna
But
go
they
on
called his
record and
bluff.
say I don't think the players are ever in the wrong trying to get the most money they can.
Right.
As I would
This
do
is
the
we are
same
not a
as a
podcast
worker.
that supports ownership. We are not.
as
We are 100% in support of the players. That being said, it is my team, and what's fair to me, I don't want to overpay,
I don't
right?
either, just because it is a
Yeah,
hard cap the NFL deals with. It's not,
right.
even though we always say it's kind of fictitious. Still, if
It's a myth. It's a myth, but it is there, there is something there. Now, the question is, as we're kind of looking to close this podcast out, Brant Tillis was brought in as the cap guru. We saw what he did with Kansas City, did a great job there. Now he comes into Carolina without a big quarterback contract. right, to have to deal with for the next 3-4 years. You've got Brian Burns, who you really have to re-sign. I think you have to do it. Brant Tillis is going to make this work. What do you think?
If he doesn't, Dan Morgan needs to. Whether it's picking up somebody else, making some moves. I mean, Hassan Reddick is wanted in a trade.
Yeah.
I mean, you
Yeah.
could maybe deal. I still think Brian Burns can fetch a first-round pick. I don't think
Hassan Reddick's not making a lot of money for his production.
He wants the Eagles want him gone because he wants a new contract.
Yeah.
But
well,
he's also 29 years old. He's also a good bit older. Yeah. But you never know. I mean, you could maybe get him for like a third or second, deal Burns for a first and a fifth or sixth. And then you're sitting there with Hassan Reddick and a first round pick now.
Would you trade Burns to the Eagles?
They wouldn't do it.
For Hassan Reddick and a first.
I would absolutely do that, but I don't think that's going to happen.
No, it definitely won't happen. So, all right. So let's get a prediction from you. What's the number that Brian Burns signs for? May not be here, but what's the number that Brian Burns signs for?
I think he signs here. I think it's 5 years, roughly $26 million a year, $2 million incentives per year. So it's probably roughly $24 million a year overall.
I think he ends up getting 28.
Ooh.
I think it's structured in such a way that the cap hit is really minimal for like the first 2 years.
12.
It's gonna be in the Panthers' favor, or the cap hit actually maybe is higher in the first couple of years because you're gonna have to sign Bryce at some point. Right?
I think the opposite. They are gonna go after a wide receiver in the free agency, I think, or another pass rusher or O-line. I think they need the money that they have. I think it's $28 million right now under the cap. I think they're going to use that. They're going to use this contract to work a deal to make that higher and really try to get going this offseason.
So, in your opinion, what is more likely, that the Panthers sign Brian Burns or that the Panthers trade Brian Burns, like a franchise and trade type of deal?
I think Burns wants to be here. I think after all this was leaked, he put out "Keep Pounding" with the Panthers blue and black heart. He wants to be here. I think he gets it done. I think Brant Tillis gets it done. Granted, I said that last offseason, but I don't see him going away. He's done everything in his power to say he wants to be here, minus signing a contract. And again, I'm back to being a player's advocate of, if you could get that money, you got to try.
His brother-in-law or his uncle, Hype Man?
Yeah. Hype Man, McClover.
Stanley McClover, yeah. He's put out some cryptic tweets basically saying, don't believe everything you read, or, things taken out of context, blah, blah, blah. Which, I wouldn't say he's the most reliable of sources, but I do think that it is wise to take that 27 number with a big grain of salt.
100%.
I would say, yeah.
If you're not the casual fans, you know how the contracts go, and that's one of them. And when I read that, the first thing I said is, I wonder what the guarantee was, because I can't see him denying that contract.
The first thing I thought, and I'll be honest, was, well, F him. Like, if he's turning that down, F him.
That's why I think the Panthers leaked it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then after that, I was like, all right, let's think about it. And then I started thinking about it. But my visceral first reaction when I saw that was to say, he's not worth that. He's not worth $30 million. He's just not. And I still stand by that.
I do too.
Worth $30 million.
He's not a top tier rusher. I think he's a tier 2 rusher. I think he can get better still. I think he hasn't hit this pinnacle.
He has the skill set. Uh-oh.
He needs to get to play with the lead. He needs another pass rusher. Those are two things he
Yeah.
needs to reach his peak.
Yeah. Agreed. And he's only a year removed from 12 and a half sacks, 63 tackles. Like he had a great season in 2022, excuse me. I expect a good season from him next year, wherever he is. I hope it's here, but I expect there to be a good season from him next year. So not all is lost, but it's interesting. And it's going to be something to follow as the offseason progresses.
Yep. We want to thank everyone for listening. If you like the show, please let your friends know. Please follow us on Twitter at MeowMix Podcast. If you have any questions or comments, you can email us at mailbag@meowmixpodcast.com. If you leave us a 5-star review with a comment on Apple Podcasts, we'll read it on the show. Please like and subscribe on YouTube.
We promise we'll be back within 2 weeks. You will have a podcast. Until then, everybody stay safe out there and keep pounding.
Wow.